Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back for another game review. Had a busy week. I finally got through this bad boy. It took me about a month to go through this. Let's make sure I can get some of the glare off there. Uncharted Seas by Miguel from the Red Room. You guys are familiar with him and his work by now. I've reviewed quite a few of their products, and you guys know me. I'm a big, huge high seas adventure guy. So when I saw this, especially considering the campaign that I'm running, I had to review this one. It's well over 400, close to 450 pages, including character sheets and a map of the world. Just great old artwork from Adobe stock and things like that. Even the cover, that's just exactly the kind of art that you'd want to see from historical sources. Get that one right there. The glare is really bad today. I don't know why, but there's tons of artwork. Every page is laid out perfectly. There's nice little trim around all the pages. It makes it really feel like you're reading an old-timey kind of book. Obviously, this book. Well, you know what? I'm not going to do that, because one of the problems I had with this was reading the calligraphy. I need to put my glasses on and really focus on it. I can read it, but it's just kind of difficult for me. I wish there would have been a translation into a standard font for me. Other people probably have no problem with it. But obviously this book is inspired by things like Howe's Odyssey, St. Brendan, Prester John, El Dorado, The Fountain of Youth, Aztec, Mayan, and African mythology, the Seven Cities of Cibola. As you would expect, I dug this book a lot. Now, you guys also might or might not know, I'm not a big history guy, and reading this I learned more about the actual history of the 1400s to just before the 1700s of our own history, and chock full of all kinds of little snippets of mythology and myths and legends and stories throughout the book that really help, because you're if you're interested in this sort of thing, you're going to want to run either a really historically accurate game, which this accomplishes in spades, or you're going to want to throw in some of the stuff from myth and legend and things like that. Again, this has all that ready to go for you in their usual style. Character creation starts with picking one of the 41 archetypes, which is, character class, if you will, accompanied by a random origin table roll and the life path events rolls, which are part and parcel to most of the Red Room games, as far as I know. Maybe there's some games that don't use that. Personally, I love it. Roll up your backstory instead of, write it out, have somebody, give you a 32-page document that the Dungeon Master now has to shoehorn all that crap into his game. It's a couple of simple roll line items, pop it on the character sheet. You and the Dungeon Master can talk about it a bit, but you're done. Most of your character backstory should start after you've rolled up your character and after you've sat at the table with your fellow players. That's at least my opinion. There are, I think, 21 skills, and each of the skills goes from novice through master, with target numbers meeting from 0 to none needed whatsoever, 10 to simple, to 30 to impossible, which you guys know I'm a big fan of putting a target number on the impossible, and if you can beat it, you can do the impossible. Otherwise, SOL. Each of the skills and levels have examples of what they can do, so there's never any doubt for the player or the GM of what you can do at that skill level, what your character knows how to do, what's possible. Then there's the perks and drawbacks, which are kind of like little special abilities that your character may have, and you can get new ones. You can get rid of the drawbacks. It's not easy, but it is feasible. I looked at the process of doing it. Then there's the alignment system, which is the path of sin and virtue, which starts out in the middle at 0, and you've got plus 30 to negative 30 when you get to either end through action or deed. You're probably going to get taken out of the game, because if you're at a 30 virtue, you're a freaking saint, and if you're at negative 30, you're possessed by Satan or some other horrific minion. The acquisition rules. Normally, I'm not a big fan of having to roll to see what you get, but looking at it from a little bit more lenient perspective, these are the rules that you need to try and acquire something within your means, not just pull it out of your ass, so to speak. But if you've got the money, then I guess you get to roll to see if you can do it, and I guess it could help simplify the process of acquiring equipment instead of having to go to every rope and backpack shop in town and haggling and doing all that nonsense. For some, I could see how it would speed it up. The experience point system is based on 1 or 2 points for doing various things throughout a game, and on average, it seems to me you could potentially earn 10 experience points in a game if you really are into your character and doing all the things and really trying to participate. Even more could be possible. And to give you an example, you will spend those experience points on things. If you want a brand new skill, 25 points. So 1, 2, 3 sessions, you've learned a new skill. Okay, that's a fair reward for your role playing to make your character better if that's what you're looking for. Specialization in a skill is 50 points. To raise one of your stats, 200 points, and you're running a 3 to 18 system. 200 points, that's really not bad. That's like 10 or 20 sessions, and one of your stats that you're focusing on goes up. That's kind of cool. A lot of games you're not getting any of that. Removing a drawback or gaining a new perk, 500 points, so double that ish to get a new perk or drawback. That's that's a halfway decent, maybe half a year worth of the campaign, and you get something pretty spectacular if you're just focusing on just purchasing the one thing. Otherwise, with 500 points, you could do kind of a lot. A couple of stat bonuses, a couple of skills, and a specialization is the way I would go. And all of that is malleable. And if the dungeon master decides you've done even better than that, you can make more points. Combat rounds are 10 seconds. Your toughness between 3 to 18, your constitution score, is your hit points. Half that for your wisdom or wit score is your fear points, which I'll get into later. So battles are quick and deadly. Don't get into them if you can avoid them. Simple. You're not getting any more hit points unless your toughness goes up, which again 200 points, and for one more hit point, you're better off learning a skill, or maybe getting some armor or something. Maybe not armor, but you see my point. Getting better at combat or staying out of it is your best bet. The sea battles, a huge chapter on all the different aspects of naval combat, which has been done here better than most war games. Pretty simple to understand and very intuitive, at least in my opinion. Mind you, there aren't that many naval sea games out there that I've participated in. Definitely blows away the way Palladium did it, in my opinion. And the few like board games, maybe a little more nitty gritty, but you're only playing one character. You're not playing the ship unless you're the captain. Back to the fear and madness rolls. Similar to hit points, except you have about half as many. And this goes for fear, madness, and panic. Certain things will trigger and give you a point. As soon as you have X number of points, you're making rolls on the appropriate charts to see if you succumb to fear, madness, and panic. However, you can get those points back by doing various activities, praying, going to church, getting, having a talk with the right person, things like that, as well as blessings that will help, negate those requirements. And there's plenty of opportunities to knock those down if you're really worried about it. Unfortunately, there are very easy ways to get those points against you, seeing a dead body in the wrong way or the right way, depending on how you look at it, stuff like that. What you would expect, similar to any other game that uses a fear or horror or that kind of mechanic. A huge section on the superstitions of the era. Target number 12 or higher to beat it, along with your bonuses from stats or skills or perks and drawbacks, that sort of thing. And it's a huge list of cultural superstitions throughout the ages that really, if implemented properly by the GM and played upon by the characters, will make for a very interesting and realistic feeling game. Something I wish I would have seen in the darker game are the miracles. Very nice consideration or touch, considering the leaning of the other games toward the super negative and dark aspects, and having some good guy magic, if you will, in this book. And I'm sure these rules would actually work well if you took them over into other games, if you want to have priests and holy people and things like that, and miracles take place in your game. And it may seem weird, but some of them aren't that difficult to accomplish for your miracle workers and your priests and things like that, which I found very refreshing and uplifting for playing a game like this, where unless you're like an alchemist or something, which I'm going to get into later, or some other sorcerer, there's not a lot to fight the big bad ugly critters that are in this game without some divine intervention. So I'm glad that's there. A very nice chapter on the pagan gods, the angels, the saints, and all that. Very, very useful in this kind of a role-playing game, and make for some very interesting NPCs. Alchemy, one of the branches of sorcery and magic that you could partake in if you're inclined to do so. Although in this kind of game, playing a magic user or anything like that, other than maybe a crusading knight or something like that, doesn't really appeal to me. Maybe to you guys it would, but it includes things like herbology and transmutation and recipes for potions and things like that. That, trust me, you're going to want one of those guys in your party if you can get them, because it's one of the few ways to really differentiate yourself from the rank and file that you're going to be surrounded by. As a matter of fact, some of those rank and file guys are actually going to be better than you, unlike many other role-playing games. So be careful, what kind of character you make. Otherwise, you're going to end up being, the cabin boy or something like that instead of the rough and tumble adventurer. A nice section on planning adventures, or actually a really lengthy section, with a superb guideline for creating game hooks and expeditions into the unknown, and steps for every step of that journey, which that's the bread and butter of this game, isn't it? Getting a ship, getting on a ship, going to the place across the ocean, and braving the terrors and nightmares of said expedition. You're going to need all that. Trade and commerce, obviously another big part of sailing from one country to another. You're going to buy, or you're bringing stuff to sell, and all that's taken care of in the usual expedited fashion. You can draw it out if you want, of course, but all of the things, the expedition planning, the acquiring goods, the voyage itself, port interactions, trade resolution, and even a nice section on long-term wealth acquisition, which in this era and these kind of characters, you're not going to be coming across treasure chests full of pirate booty, but once or twice in a campaign. So you really need to think about investing your money along the way to have something to retire on, because by the time you're 30, you're an old man. So that's good that they really map that out for the players. The trade posts, the colonies, once again, everything is covered in great detail. Adventuring, trade, and progression. which I kind of went over with the, what you do with your experience points, the new perks, your reputation, and influence growth. How famous you are, if people know you, if people pay you the due respect, or if you're still the cabin boy, then sucks to be you. There's several hundred, I want to say, maybe only 200, but adversaries from animals and normal creatures you might find here on Earth, to the humans that you're going to bump into, as well as the mythological creatures, and so many new creatures that I'd never heard of. I thought I knew my mythology and my myths, but I don't know where you pulled all this stuff from, Miguel. But man, there are some creatures and some things that I'm dying to pull into my games. I know my players are just going to be like, "What the heck is that? That's not in the monster manual," kind of thing. Like I'm always saying about Arduin. But there's a ton of great adversaries in this book. There are several different adventure, like not modules, but pre-written out adventures with various steps along the way, with obvious side quest abilities and red herrings and all that. Almost every other page has got like a one paragraph short story or blurb of some myth that you could obviously dive deeper into, because there's the title and then the entire summarized description of this myth or this legend. There's probably like 300 of those that you could just easily just build upon, change a couple of names, and then run with it. As well as a bunch of historical plot hooks and things that really happen, and you can just recreate those particular events if you want to keep it out of the mythological fantasy realm. And then summing up the book toward the end, there's a huge list of random tables with everything from trade routes to loot tables to encounters with natives, all kinds of different results, things like that. And probably my favorite chapter. I hate to be the killer DM right now, but it really surprised me to see this section called "More Ways to Kill Player Characters," from cannibalism to animal attacks. Just love it, dysentery and all the different things you might not think of, but were pretty devastating back in that era, and we kind of just sort of gloss over. But if you're going to play a historical or relatively realistic game, you might as well pull those punches, because they will give you a lot of options and necessities and requirements that the players are going to have to deal with, better sooner than later. All the factions that you can imagine from the real world, from all the countries and what they were doing, as well as pretty much the last thing in the book, other than the character sheets and things like that in the appendix, is a chronology from 1400 to 1659, all the things, people, and places from our own planet that pertain to this sort of game and campaign idea. So you could literally just run through a couple of decades and then just do the research to further enhance what Miguel's already put down in here. I really dig this book a lot. I'm glad I got it. It's about $50. I think it's about $50, something like that, on not drive-through, Lulu. I don't know anything about drive-through. I'm not a fan of drive-through, but look at that thing. Just meaty, thick, not a wasted page, not a wasted paragraph. There were a couple of little things that I came across to help Miguel out, so you might want to wait a little while before you get the PDF so you can fix those. If you want to grab the book, it's a hefty read. It's definitely worth the price of admission, in my opinion. I will use so much of this in my current high seas adventure game that I can't thank Miguel enough for putting this out. A little sooner would have been better, but there was no you know, he didn't say, hey, I'm going to start writing this. He just pumped it out, and it probably took him like, you know, 4 days to write all this, knowing him, the way he puts stuff out. But I'm getting ready for the second leg of my campaign, so I'll start dropping in some more of this realism, some more role-playing elements that I'm going to borrow from this as well. But I really can't recommend it enough. If this is your cup of tea. If it's not, there's plenty of other books from Miguel in the Red Room out there to whet your appetite for role-playing. We've got a new year coming up. Always a great opportunity to start a new game or a new campaign. I may even be doing one later end of January. I'm still sort of thinking about it. Whether it's this one or not, I don't know. I really want to play in one of Miguel or somebody else who's familiar with their game systems before I try to run one on my own. Maybe I'll watch some of the videos. Maybe you guys should watch some of the videos too. They got a ton of them. But that's all I got for you today. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I got a busy one. I think I hear my chimney sweep downstairs, so I've got to let you guys go. Make sure you hit all the buttons. Go over to the Red Room and look through their catalogs, see what they've got that you might like, because they are easily my favorite game designers of this year. I'm glad I got to meet them and hang out with them. I hope you get the same opportunities this year. And if not, we got a new year right around the corner. So until next time, folks, love you guys. Happy trails.